This is the first in a series of videos teaching you how to use MIT App Inventor 2 to create apps that will run on Android phones and other Android devices. I'm assuming you've already figured out how to get App Inventor working on your system. I'm also assuming that you're a beginner, and consequently, I'll explain various features of App Inventor in greater detail than will with later videos. This is the first of 4 videos that will take you step by step through creating an app I call the Voice Maker. This is a simple app where a user enters text on the phone, and when they press a button, the phone will speak the text that they've entered. There'll be 2 sliders. One slider lets them adjust the frequency or the pitch of the voice, and another lets them adjust the speech rate or how fast it speaks. Then below that, there'll be a series of checkboxes that will let the user change the accent of the voice. This is a fun app to play with, but it also introduces several features of App Inventor that we'll be using over and over with later tutorials. This includes labels, text boxes, buttons, and text-to-speech. As you go through this video, I recommend that you open 2 windows. In one window, you'll have MIT App Inventor, and in the other window, you'll have the video tutorial. And that way, as I explain how to do things in the video tutorial, you can implement them within MIT App Inventor. First, we'll go to Projects, and under Projects, we'll select Start New Project. We need to give it a name. I will call it the Voice Maker. You notice I use underscores in the name, and this is because with project names, App Inventor does not like spaces or special characters, although an underscore is okay. I'll hit Enter, and this will bring up a viewer with a blank screen. Next, I want to connect my phone with App Inventor. So I'll go to Connect. I'll select AI Companion. Now I have a blank screen, both in MIT App Inventor in the viewer and on my phone. As I make changes within MIT App Inventor, I should be able to see those changes on my phone. On the left under Palette, in the User Interface Components, you'll see we have Label. I want to add some text to the screen, and I'll do that using the label. So I click on Label, drag it over, drop it onto the screen, and you'll see on the screen it says Text for Label 1, and you should be able to see that same text on the phone. As I'm adding components, oftentimes it will be important for me to rename those components. And this is especially true when I have many similar components in an app, and I'm going to want to be able to distinguish different ones later as I'm developing the app. So under Components, you see I have Label 1 highlighted. I'll go to Rename, and I'm going to call that my title label. And I'll hit Enter, and you see that it changes the name of the component to title label. This is going to be the label at the top of the screen that tells the user what the app is. Under the Properties, so when this is highlighted under Components, under the Properties, where it says Font Bold, I'm going to click that, and you'll see the text will change to bold on the screen, and it should also change on the phone. Bold font makes the text easier to read, and this is something that's important because oftentimes as someone is using the phone, they're going to be in unfavorable conditions, maybe under bright sunlight. To also help make it easier to read, I'm going to go to Font Size. I'm going to change that to 24, so that will make it much larger. Now I want to change the actual text. So I'll go to the bottom where it says Text, and I'm going to type in the Voice Maker, and I will hit Enter, and you will see the text change. Let's add another label. So we'll go back to user interface, pull label over and drop it right below the first one. We'll rename it. This is going to be my instructions label that tells the user what to do. I'm going to change the bold to font, but this time I'm going to make the size 18. You can use different size fonts as you're designing your app to indicate what is more or less important. So larger font obviously will be more important and smaller font will be less important. I'll also go down to where it says text, and I'm going to change that to say, tell me what to say. Hit enter, and it will change on the phone and on the screen. Next, I want a text box. So under Palette, I'll go to the bottom of the user interface components. I'll grab text box, pull it over. I'll rename this my input text box. For the properties, you see toward the middle it says width, and then click on that. The second item here is fill parent. The logic here is that the screen is considered to be the parent, and then all the components that we put on the screen, such as the labels or text boxes or buttons, these are each considered to be children. So if I say fill parent, so I will click fill parent, and I'll say OK. I'm telling it to fill the entire screen with that component, and as you see, now my text box goes all the way across the screen. The other thing I want to change here is App Inventor with text boxes will automatically put a hint. So these are like words in the text box that tell you what to do. For the text box where it has hint, I am going to delete that text, and that way my hint will not show up in the app. I have one more interface component, and that is a button. So go to user interface on the left, where it says button, grab button, pull that over. I'll rename that my input button. And you notice when I rename the components, I put what the component is in the name. And when we're developing programs in the blocks workspace, that will become helpful. The button has text on it that says text for button 1. I want to change that. So again, I'll make sure button is highlighted under components. And for the properties, I'll go down toward the bottom where it says text. And I will change that to listen to me talk. Okay. Now I have one more thing to do before I start programming. So under left, under palette, I'll go down to media. And you'll see the third from the bottom is text to speech. This is a speech synthesis component. So what it will do is it will take whatever text I enter in the text box and it will say it using a human-like voice. So I'll pull that over, drop it onto the screen. However, you notice it doesn't actually show up on the screen, but it goes down to the bottom as a non-visible or hidden component. This is because it's a component that's part of your app, but it's not something that the user is actually going to see. With that done, now we're ready to start programming. So in the top right-hand corner, you see where it has Designer and Blocks. We're currently in the Designer workspace. We want to go to the Blocks workspace, so we will click on Blocks. And on the left, where you see the Blocks column, let's go down to our Input button. So we'll click on Input button. And the first block we have in the list is when Input button click Do. So we will get that block, and when we click on it, we add it to our program. This is an event handler. So what this is doing is as the app is running, it's constantly watching for certain events, such as a person clicks or taps on the button, and now this tells it what to do when it sees that event. Let's go down to our text-to-speech component on the left. So under blocks, we'll click on text-to-speech. And you see the third one in the list is a purple one called Call Speak with a Message Slot. This is a procedure call. We're going to click on that, and we're going to pull it up, and we're going to slide it into the slot, and you should hear a small clicking sound. So this is a procedure call, and what a procedure call does is tells the program some instructions for what to do. And in this case, what it's going to be doing is telling the text-to-speech component, which is software that comes installed on any Android phone, is going to be telling it what to say. So now we need to tell it what to say. And what we'll do is on the left under blocks where we have our input text box, we click on input text box, and we want what is called a pointer. So we'll go down to the bottom of the list, and you see the one that has the name of our text box, input text box, and it has a period text or dot text. I want that pointer. I'm going to pull that over. So this is a pointer, and it points the text-to-speech component to the text box, and it says, here's the text. Wherever it is that the user entered, here's the text that you should say. So at this point, you should have a working app. So go ahead and test it. This is the first of 3 tutorials for creating the VoiceMaker app. You can now go to Lesson 1B, and we will add sliders that will let you adjust the pitch and the speech rate for the voice.